I grew up believing that being quiet was the same as being good. My mother taught me that. Not with words. She never had to use words. She taught me with the way she tilted her head whenever my younger sister walked into a room like the sun had just come out from behind a cloud. She taught me with the way she'd look at me. Not unkindly, but with a kind of patient disappointment, like I was a problem she had decided to simply manage rather than solve. My sister's name is Brooke. She's 3 years younger than me, and from the time she could talk, she knew how to make a room love her. She's the kind of person who laughs at exactly the right moment, who remembers everyone's coffee order, who cries at weddings in a way that makes other people feel something. I don't say that with bitterness. It's just the truth. Brooke is magnetic. Always has been. I am not magnetic. I'm the older one. The one who got good grades, but not the right kind of attention. The one who left home at 22 for a city my parents called too far, for a job they called not stable, for a life they quietly decided didn't need their enthusiasm. I'm a ceramics artist. I have a small studio in Portland. I teach 3 workshops a week. I sell through 2 galleries and my own online shop, and I have been doing this for 6 years. I have never once asked my family to come see my work, not because I didn't want them to, but because the one time I invited them to my first gallery show, my mother asked if I had a backup plan, and my father spent the whole night talking to the gallery owner about his own career in insurance. I stopped inviting them after that. My boyfriend, his name is Finn, has been with me for 4 years. He's a landscape architect. Quiet in the way that feels solid, not empty. He comes from a family that actually shows up for each other. And sometimes I catch him watching my family dynamics with this careful, studied expression, like he's trying to understand a language he was never taught. He has tried with my family. He really has. He brought wine to Thanksgiving. He asked my father questions about his work. He complimented my mother's cooking with enough specificity that she knew he meant it. None of it landed the way it should have. My mother was polite to him. She's always polite. But she talked about Brooke's boyfriend, Preston, for 40 minutes straight at dinner and didn't ask Finn a single question. Not one. Brooke got engaged to Preston in January. Big proposal. He rented out a rooftop bar, had her friends flown in, hired a photographer. It was on Instagram within the hour. My mother called me at 7 in the morning the next day, which is the only time she has ever called me that early, and she talked for 25 minutes without taking a real breath. She was electric with happiness. I listened. I said the right things. I met most of them. I was happy for Brooke. Genuinely, whatever complicated feelings lived underneath that. The wedding was set for September. 8 months of planning. My mother was in her element. There were color consultations and venue tours, and a group chat I was added to called Brooke's Big Day that had 47 members. I am not exaggerating that number. I assumed I would be a bridesmaid. Brooke and I are not close the way sisters in movies are close. We don't tell each other secrets. We don't call each other crying. But we are sisters. We grew up in the same house. I know the way she takes her tea. I know she's afraid of driving in the rain. I know her first heartbreak was a boy named something forgettable in 10th grade who told her she was too intense, and that it took her longer to get over than she ever admitted. I know her. So I assumed. In March, Brooke called me. We were on the phone for almost 30 minutes, which was longer than usual, and she spent most of it talking about the wedding, the venue, the flowers, the dress. I listened. Then she said, almost like an afterthought, almost like she was mentioning the weather, "Oh, and I wanted to talk to you about the bridesmaid thing." I waited. "Preston's family is really big," she said. "Like, he has 4 sisters. And we both thought, it would be easier if the wedding party just stayed on his side. For symmetry." I was quiet for a moment. "So I'm not in the wedding party." "It's not personal," she said. "It's just logistics." Logistics. I was logistics. I said I understood. I kept my voice even. I asked if there was anything she needed help with leading up to the day, and she said she'd let me know, and then we talked about something else for 3 minutes and said goodbye. I sat on my kitchen floor after that call for a long time, not crying, just sitting. The apartment was quiet and the afternoon light was coming through the window at that low angle it gets in March, and I just sat there with my back against the cabinet and thought about all the years I had spent making myself small and quiet and manageable for a family that had sorted me, somewhere along the way, into the category of people who could be set aside when things got inconvenient. Finn came home and found me there. He didn't ask a lot of questions. He just sat down on the floor next to me and handed me a cup of tea and waited. Eventually, I told him. He was quiet for a while too. Then he said, carefully, "We've been talking about getting married." We had been. Loosely, gently. Not with timelines, but with the kind of ease that meant we both knew we were heading there. "Yeah," I said. "We could do it before September," he said. "Or after. Or during." I looked at him. "Not to make a point," he said. "Just you deserve a wedding. You deserve something that's actually about you, and I've been wanting to marry you for 2 years." I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I said, "Where would we even do it?" He smiled. "I have an idea." Finn grew up spending summers on the Oregon coast. His family has a cabin near a town called Manzanita, a small place, driftwood on the beach, the kind of quiet that feels earned rather than empty. His parents had offered the cabin to us more than once for weekends, and every time I went there I felt something in my chest unclench that I hadn't realized was clenched. His idea was this: a small wedding on the beach. Just people who actually loved us. A ceremony at sunset, dinner at a long table on the sand, fire afterward. No group chat with 47 members. No symmetry logistics. We planned it in 6 weeks. I know that sounds fast, but when you're not trying to impress anyone, things get simple quickly. We had 31 guests. We wrote our own vows. I made ceramic place cards for every seat at the table, small, irregular, glazed in the colors of the Oregon coast, pale blue and sand, and the dark gray of storm clouds. I stayed up 3 nights finishing them, and I didn't mind at all. I wore a dress I found in a vintage shop on Alberta Street, ivory, loose with a slight texture that caught the evening light. My friend Dessa did my hair. Finn wore a linen suit the color of sea glass. We did not tell my family. That was not a decision I made dramatically. I didn't sit down and plan a revenge. I just didn't invite people who had made me feel, repeatedly and consistently, like I was a logistics problem. My parents were not at Brooke's 47-person planning group by accident. They had placed themselves there. They had sorted themselves. I simply sorted myself too. The ceremony was on a Friday evening in late June. The sky did that thing. It does on the Oregon coast, where it holds the light longer than you expect. Golden and wide, and the ocean was loud enough that Finn and I had to lean in to hear each other's vows. I didn't mind that either. It felt right. Like our words were just for us. My friend Theo's wife, Audra, is a photographer. Not professionally. She has a day job in healthcare. But she has been shooting film photography for 15 years, and she has an eye that I have always envied. She was one of our 31 guests. She brought 2 cameras. After the ceremony, while we were eating dinner on the sand, the light shifted. That happens sometimes on the coast. The sun drops behind a layer of clouds and then reemerges just before it hits the horizon, and for about 4 minutes the light is something else entirely. Warm and lateral and almost liquid. Audra had wandered down the beach, and she turned back at exactly the right moment and shot a frame of Finn and me standing at the water's edge, his hand at my waist, my face turned up toward his. The light caught in a specific way, the way it only does in that window of 4 minutes, twice a year, at exactly that angle, and landed in a halo around the 2 of us. She showed me the image later that night, and I didn't say anything for a long time. It looked like a painting. It looked like something someone had constructed on purpose. But no one had. It was just Audra, and that light, and the fact that we happened to be standing exactly there. I didn't post it immediately. I'm not a heavy social media user. I posted it 10 days after the wedding with almost no caption. Just the date and a small ceramic heart emoji, because I had made those too. I have about 400 followers on Instagram, mostly people who follow my ceramics work, some former students, a few friends. By the next morning, the image had been shared 1,100 times. I don't know exactly how it spread. Someone with a larger following reposted it, and then someone else did. And then a wedding photography account shared it. Their caption called it the most natural light we've ever seen in a real wedding photograph. And then it was in 3 separate Instagram roundups of dream wedding moments within a week. Audra's name was on all of them, which was right. Her camera, her eye, her timing. My inbox became something I didn't recognize. Messages from people I had never met, from photographers asking to interview Audra, from wedding blogs asking for more details about the location and the dress and the ceramic place cards. One of the ceramics magazines I had been quietly hoping to be featured in for 3 years reached out asking to do a profile, not on the wedding, but on my work, because someone on their team had followed the trail back to my studio account. I read every message slowly, sitting at my studio workbench with clay still on my hands. And I felt something that I want to describe accurately because I think it matters. I did not feel triumphant. I felt seen. Genuinely, unexpectedly seen. Genuinely, unexpectedly. Not because of anything I had performed or constructed, but because Finn and I had done something real, something just for us, and it had turned out to be the kind of real that other people recognized. My mother called 6 days after the post went up. I saw her name on my phone, and I let it ring twice before I answered. She had seen the photo. Of course she had. Someone had sent it to her. Her voice was different from how it usually sounds when she calls me. Usually she sounds organized, purposeful, like she has a list. This time, she sounded like she had been caught slightly off balance. She said it was beautiful. I said thank you. She said she didn't know we had gotten married. I said we had kept it small. There was a pause. I have learned, over 31 years, to wait out my mother's pauses. They are the moments when she is deciding which version of herself to be. She chose the gentle one. She said she wished she had been there. She said she felt hurt that I hadn't told her. She said she wanted us to celebrate together, that she and my father wanted to take us to dinner, that family was family. I listened to all of it. And then I said, as evenly as I could, "Mom, I've been feeling like a guest in this family for a long time. I didn't want to feel like a guest at my own wedding, too." Another pause, longer this time. She said she didn't know I felt that way. I believed her, actually. That was the hardest part. I believed that she genuinely didn't know, that she had sorted me so naturally into the background that it had never once registered as something she was doing. My mother is not cruel. She never meant to diminish me. She just loved Brooke in a way that took up all the available light, and she had been doing it for so long that it had become invisible to her. "I know," I said. "That's kind of the whole thing. We didn't resolve it in that phone call." I don't think those things resolve in phone calls. But something shifted, not in her exactly, but in me. I had said the true thing instead of the manageable thing, and the world had not ended. My voice had not broken. I had not needed her to understand in order to be okay. Brooke's wedding was in September. I went. I sat in the 3rd row and I watched my sister marry Preston, and she was genuinely radiant, and I was glad for her. At the reception, my mother introduced me to her friends as my older daughter. She's an artist in Portland. And this time she said it without the slight pause before artist that used to live there. I don't know if she did it on purpose. I didn't ask. One of her friends had seen the photo. She grabbed my hand and said it was one of the most beautiful wedding images she had ever seen, and my mother, standing right there, said, "That's her work. The ceramics in the photo, too. She made all of those herself." I looked at my mother. She looked back at me. It wasn't an apology. It wasn't a grand reckoning or a moment of tearful reconciliation. It was just a small, quiet acknowledgement. The first one that had come without me having to ask for it. The first one that had arrived on its own. I took it for what it was. Finn and I drove back to Portland the next morning. The coast was on our left, the whole way down. Gray and enormous and indifferent in the way that oceans always are. And I had my feet up on the dashboard and his hand was on the gear shift and we didn't talk much. We didn't need to. I have thought since then about what it actually means to stop waiting. I had spent a long time, years, probably, waiting for my family to see me the way I needed to be seen before I could move forward. Waiting for the right invitation, the right acknowledgement, the right moment when they would finally understand what I was worth. I had made myself smaller and smaller in the hope that they would eventually notice how small I had become and feel sorry about it. They never did. Not on their own. And I think that's the thing no one tells you, that some families will not see you until you stop asking to be seen, until you turn around and build something so genuinely, so completely yours that the light catches on it by accident, and they look up and realize they've been missing it all along. I didn't plan the photograph. I didn't plan the viral moment. I didn't plan any of it except the part that mattered. The part where I married someone who chose me fully, on a beach I loved, with people who had always shown up. Everything else was just the light, doing what light does, and I was exactly where I needed to be to catch it. I've been thinking about what it actually costs to keep waiting for permission. Not money, not time exactly. Something harder to name. The slow, quiet erosion of your own sense of what you're allowed to want. I spent years waiting for my family to hand me something. Acknowledgement, a seat at the table that wasn't an afterthought. Some small signal that I mattered in the same way Brooke mattered. That my work and my choices and my life were worth the same warmth they gave her so easily and so constantly. That signal never came. Not the way I needed it to. And here's what I've come to understand. The waiting itself was the problem. Not because waiting is weak. Sometimes patience is the most intelligent thing you can do. But the kind of waiting I was doing wasn't patience. It was postponement. I was postponing my own life, my own joy, my own full sense of self, until someone else decided I was worth it. That's not patience. That's giving other people your steering wheel and hoping they drive somewhere good. The morning Finn sat down on the kitchen floor next to me after Brooke's call. He didn't tell me what to do. He didn't perform outrage on my behalf. He just sat with me, and then, quietly, he offered something, a real thing, a present tense thing, a thing that had nothing to do with my family's approval and everything to do with what we actually wanted. That's what genuine care looks like. Not someone who fights your battles for you. Someone who reminds you that you're allowed to want something for yourself right now, not later, not after everyone else is satisfied. The ethics of what I did. Not inviting my parents to my wedding. I've turned it over many times. I don't think it was cruel. I think it was honest. I had been making myself available to people who treated my availability as something they could schedule around. At some point, honesty requires action, not just words. I didn't make a speech. I didn't write a letter listing grievances. I simply built something real with someone who showed up for me, and I did it without asking for anyone's permission first. That was the most truthful thing I had done in years. The photograph. Audra's photograph going viral was never the point, but I've thought about why it resonated the way it did. I think people recognize authenticity the same way they recognize bad lighting instinctively before they can explain it. That image was real because what it captured was real. Finn and I were not performing anything. We were just there, in a place we loved, with people who chose to be with us. The light did the rest. Resilience isn't loudness. It's not a declaration or a comeback or a moment where you finally say the devastating thing you've been holding back. For me, resilience looked like a 6-week timeline and 31 handwritten ceramic place cards, and showing up to my sister's wedding in September without bitterness, just with a different understanding of what I needed from my family going forward, which is less than I used to need. And that's not sadness. That's freedom. My mother said that's her work in front of her friends, and she meant it. It was small, it was late, but it was real. And I took it for what it was. Not a resolution, but a beginning of something more honest between us. I think that's all most family relationships can offer. Not perfect understanding, but incremental truth. You say the real thing once. They hear some of it. You both live with what remains. I don't need them to fully see me anymore. I see myself. That turned out to be enough.